Okay, good morning, friends. I'll say first good morning to the students in the room, and good morning to all of the Sangha members out there wherever you may be. Thanks for joining this morning for Journey Home Meditation's Morning Sit. I'm Michael. I'm going to take us through some breathing practices together, moving into some body awareness and some meditative practices. We'll probably get into a little contemplation and some poetry this morning, so let's just take a few moments to settle into our body and settle into our breath. A few silent breaths with our thoughts focusing on the sensation of the breath is an opening and a beginning to an awareness of not just what we're feeling in our bodies, but what we're holding already. So these practices of following the sensation as the air moves in, becoming breath into our body, to the bottom of our belly, and then out. It's an inroad practice. And just like anything that's complex, it has layers. So there's layers built upon layers, built upon layers. And if we think about our existence in that way, we have this tiny spark of life inside of us, and then that's surrounded by our bodies, our hearts, our nervous systems, and that's surrounded by our skin, our flesh, the ways that we receive sensory information, whether it's feeling or smell or taste, or what we see, what we hear, or what we sense, the senses that we have of something. And then extending out from there, we have these other layers of our existence. Our energy fields, our relationships as a small community, whether that's family or co-workers or people in the school. And then from there we layer outward and we just keep going. We get larger and larger. But each of those components is an element of who we are. If our consciousness can reach it, then it's part of who we are. So if your consciousness can reach a level of compassion for the world, then that's when you begin to understand you truly are a part of a larger organism. And this practice is about bringing all of that consciousness down and finding that internal spark, that center, the nucleus. So let's take a few conscious breaths together. We're going to breathe in through the nose to the bottom of the belly slowly. And as we breathe out, we can breathe out of our mouths, but breathe out in a controlled and slow way, breathing out longer than you breathed in. We really want to make sure that we're getting everything out and releasing what we're holding on to just as much as we are receiving. Our capacity to receive is equivalent to our capacity to let go. So the more we can let go of what we're tightly holding on to, our fears, our inhibitions, our insecurities, the things that we bundle tightly around, the more we can receive new information. We can receive safety and calm and feel at home in this body and in this space at any moment. So breathing in through the nose to the bottom of the belly. I'm going to invite the bell. Breathing in. And letting go. Breathing in. And letting go. And breathing in. And letting go. Make some minor adjustments to the body. Getting some of those tight spaces opened up can be really beneficial to helping us see where it is we might be grasping. Pay attention to your out-breath in these moments. See how the body feels. If you're truly releasing and letting go, you can feel the body surrender into that out-breath. And taking a moment to remind yourself that you are in a safe place right now can be quite helpful if you are in a safe place. And we can have feelings and memories and experiences of fear when we're not in a dangerous place. We can be in an internally unsafe space. But recognizing that we are contained right now in a safe space, we're around people who intend us no harm, or we're in a room that we are not immediately threatened, we can remember that the difference between fear and danger is I can be afraid of something that's not there, but danger is something that is impending and you can see it right in front of you. So having a mantra that if I'm not in danger, I will not live in fear. Because the memory of danger is something we can relive over and over again. If we feel like we have not been able to find safety for ourselves or to come to a place in our bodies where we can provide our own needs, then that feeling of being out of control, that's where trauma is born. The inability to meet your own needs of safety. Good morning. You're welcome to grab pillows or mats if you would like. And our minds become really well accustomed to ignoring information, especially information that comes verbally. We can tell ourselves anything and we won't believe it if we choose not to believe it. But the act of inviting this into our bodies, not verbally but through the breath, the body responds to that all on its own. So adjusting from breathing deep breaths in the mouth to breathing slow and calm through the nose to the bottom of the belly, the diaphragm pulling downwards into the belly is the way that we breathe when we are not fighting a bear, when we're not running for our lives. And our body recognizes this. So our body begins to respond in kind, and it starts to give us the things that we need to relax and feel calm. So just a few moments of breathing into the belly can make a big difference. And if you're experiencing the feeling or the belief that you can't stop your thoughts from racing, that's all right. That's what your thoughts are going to do. That's what our brains do. Our minds are there to think. Our hearts pump blood. We don't want to stop that from happening. Our stomach digests. And on. Every part of our body has a job. So the mind's job is to think, and that's all right. The problem comes when we start to fight against ourselves. So even just saying to yourself, I can't stop my mind. There's a level of recognition and surrender in that as you breathe in and out, if you just repeat that mantra to yourself, I can't stop my mind, you begin to enter into a relationship where you're not battling yourself. And it's like raising a peace flag with your own thoughts. Unfortunately, we can't raise a peace flag with the leaf blower. But what we can do is we can recognize that the sounds of the world are not what are causing our disturbances. The world is a loud place. It's a loud place. But inside we can seek refuge and find some bit of solace and silence. And that silence that we can find internally, that's reparative. It's taking an active choice to begin to repair some of the damage that you may have collected in your life. Okay, let's do 3 breaths together, breathing in through the nose to the bottom of the belly. And when we breathe in, say, I am receiving. Keep the thought, I am receiving. And as you breathe out, that nice, slow, long exhale, just hold the thought, I am letting go. So breathing in, I am receiving. And breathing out, I am letting go. I am receiving. I am letting go. I am receiving. I am letting go. All right. So I know there's a lot of talk when we do this kind of work about damage and wounding, and this might be making the assumption that we're just walking around with all of these like injuries, like Frankenstein's, all stitched together. But I think it's important for us to remember that we spend a lot of our conscious time suppressing those feelings and masking and adjusting to how we can function to belong in social groups. And that oftentimes has not included our ability to show up exhausted, or to show up sad, or to show up in pain or scared. So we learn all these techniques in our daily life to not feel those things. So when we do these practices, the reason that we oftentimes discuss those things is because this is a practice of wholeness, of finding a wholeness with ourselves. We all know how to experience happiness or joy at some point, right? We all have laughed at a funny movie, or we've had a great time with our friends, or enjoyed a delicious meal. But we don't all always know how to arrive fully for ourselves and be present when we're feeling something that is difficult, without also including shame and embarrassment and fear of rejection along with those difficult feelings. And this really showcases itself in our personal relationships, our interpersonal relationships with our close friends, or with our partners, with our parents or our siblings. The people that we are closest in proximity to. Because I was talking about layers, how we have these layers. And the closer we get to someone, the more vulnerable that we become with someone, the intimacy increases. And the intimacy in this case I'm talking about isn't a romantic intimacy, it's a closeness. So the closeness that you get with people who you trust. Trust builds intimacy. And as we increase that intimacy, those layers we become closer and closer. So now we're allowing each other into those closer layers, right? And we have a tendency to use language like we bury these emotions, right? As you guys have heard that before, I'm sure. You know, I buried this deep. So as we get into those closer, intimate relationships, we also start getting closer to those buried emotions. And that's why it's so much easier when you are close to somebody to have big fights or to throw a fit. You know, I find myself throwing a fit in front of my wife or my children much quicker than I am going to throw a fit in front of strangers in public, right? I mean, isn't that how it is? And this is why we say we always hurt the ones closest to us. Well, that's because we believe that when we're in pain, we're going to hurt someone by expressing our pain. So the only way we learn how to express our pain is hurtfully, through being loud or being aggressive with someone or being defensive about ourselves. But if we can begin to shift that relationship by finding our own intimacy with those buried things through these practices, then we can become more comfortable with those things, and we can start to recognize that what hurts me doesn't have to hurt the world, and that there's no amount of pain that I could cause that's going to take away the pain that I feel. And if that's true, then my intimacy and knowledge of my pain is going to serve me in knowing I can sit with what has wounded me and it doesn't have to cause me harm. There's a difference in feeling discomfort and the pain of a wounding and being harmed by it. Does that make sense? Is that unclear to anybody? Because I know that can sound like a contradiction of terms. It's really easy to confuse those two things. And most often it's easy to confuse them because when we've been harmed, we feel these discomforts and these uncomfortable feelings and this fear and this anxiety and this shame and this embarrassment. That is all a product of being harmed. So when I start to touch into it again, I can feel like it's harming me. But it doesn't necessarily have to be so. We can recognize that, for instance, a tattoo. Tattoos hurt. Like, there's no two ways about that. Tattoos and piercings, they hurt. But we can recognize that when we have the mindset of being present and aware and having some level of agency with that pain, then we shift what was painful into an experience of growth. Now I'm causing this pain to get this beautiful tattoo or this piercing, but I'm present with it, so it's going to be a different type of experience of pain than harm. It's not harm. We don't register it as harm. We don't store it in our body as a harmful experience. We store that painful experience as an experience of agency or growth. But that's not always so if our mindset is one of causing harm. So things like causing our own bodies harm out of distress, we store that as harm. We store that in our bodies as shame and as embarrassment. And this is the understanding. I bring these two things up because this is the way that we can understand the difference between being with an uncomfortable emotion and being harmed by something that we feel inside. Does that make sense? Then you guys following? Yeah? Yeah, so the practice here is one of moving through those layers and remembering while we do this work, while you start to get into those deeper layers, that you can always step back to a wider lens. You can always step out into a different layer. Your consciousness spends most of its day not being in that really deep internal layer. I mean, if we all walked around living in the depths of our buried emotions, man, I mean, what would that even look like? Like, you just start opening up about all your wounding, and the person on the other side's like, "Sir, this is Taco Bell drive-through." Like, it doesn't work. We don't function as a society if we're living constantly in those buried spaces. So we learn ways to live in the outer layers. If at any moment, when you're doing these intentional practices of breathing into the body and coming into these pains, you start to feel unsafe, you can always begin to shift to an outer layer. This does not necessarily require you to dissociate from your body or who you are. This is simply remembering, I am this also. Yes, I am experiencing this thing, but I am also this other thing. I can also experience the cool air in the room on my skin. And then you spend a few moments with that outer layer, shifting all of your conscious thought that you can to the experience of the cool air on your skin. Just feel for a second. Has anybody in here ever said, like, when you had an injury, like an injured ankle, I'm in pain? Anybody?
No.
You've never had an injured ankle and then made the statement, I'm in pain?
No, I say it hurts.
It hurts, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The only time I've ever said the sentence, I'm in pain, is like pleading for people to like empathize with me emotionally.
Okay, there we go. So this is where we're going. We're looking for empathy. We're looking for some kind. Empathy in this case is identification with this. Oh, I know what that is. Yeah, I feel you, girl. You know, like, I feel that. I feel you. I know that you're in pain. I'm here.
Yeah, being safe, seen, and heard is like one of the things that in trauma research they say that needs to happen in a community setting so that you don't develop a disorder with the trauma. So having other people to like hold it with you and to just like help you feel safe in experiencing it without judgment helps people not develop disorder.
That's absolutely correct. And this is something we learn from birth, is that even before birth, even in utero, if you are in a consistently unsafe environment, then you neurologically, you don't learn how to pattern yourself for rest and recuperation. You only learn how to pattern yourself for crisis. And many of us teach ourselves that as we get older because that's what we know.
And the world is designed to keep us feeling a state of crisis in a lot of ways, with manufactured like scarcity and
Sure. And because it's designed by people who have that internal experience of scarcity.
yeah.
There's nobody in this world who feels like the world is made of more finite and scarce resources than a billionaire. Somebody with the insatiable urge to collect and own and control everything is someone who experiences on a daily basis the experience that there is not enough for me. And it's because you will never get enough of what you do not need. If there's something you don't need in this world, you won't find that there's enough of it in the world. So you'll collect all the things you don't need all the time. You'll collect those fair weather friends that aren't really your friends. They're superficial friends, and you can collect 1,000 of them, and at the end of the day, you'll feel lonely. But it's when you get those relationships that you really need that you feel content. You may have one friend or two friends or one person in the world that you feel like gets you, and you don't feel lonely. You don't feel lonely when you have that person in mind or when you're with that person. This is all related to this same thing. This sense of the fear of scarcity comes from our internal ability to understand that we have what we need or not, and how to meet those needs. When you're a baby, you can't meet those needs. We need to have those needs met by others. If we've never learned how to meet those needs by others teaching us, we have to figure it out. And vice versa, it is much easier to learn how to have our needs met when we can learn how to meet those needs for others. Learning how to hold space like we are right now in this room, while we all work through these breathing practices together, you are actively teaching yourself how to hold space for somebody else's discomfort. That means you're teaching yourself how to receive that space when it's held for you. But coming back to the question of I'm in pain, identifying with that pain body, if you get into that space internally where you start to get triggered into anxiety and you start to identify purely with the anxiety, I have anxiety, I'm having a panic attack, I'm feeling unsafe, the ability to move in and out of those layers is really important in that moment. Because we won't always have the ability to be comforted by anybody else. It just doesn't matter what they say. That's not where we're feeling comfort. We're not feeling comfort in our mind because our mind is the one that's kind of gone haywire. And so hearing something doesn't help, but finding body sensations can really help. So a real quick practice, if you just sit for a moment and focus on the feeling of, like, put your hands out, palms out, palms up, you can set them on your lap, whatever. But opening your hands and just feel what it feels like right in the middle of your hand, right in the middle of your palm. Focus purely on that sensation. Somebody tell me what it feels like in the center of your palm right now.
Vibrating.
You feel a vibration, numb, like a tingly?
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else? Tell me what you feel on the inside of your palm. I feel a little cold. It feels colder on the inside of my palm, and maybe it almost feels like I have water in the palm of my hand. Like right on the skin on the inside of my palm. It feels colder and wetter. Now, I wouldn't begin to identify with myself as being cold and wet or vibrating or tingly as a being because I'm experiencing that inside of the palm of my hand, correct? I would say, oh, it feels cold and wet in the palm of my hand, but I don't feel cold and wet as a being, as a person. It's a sensation. So I can both feel the warmth on the back of my neck from my hoodie and the cold in the center of my palm at the same time. Find a feeling somewhere else in your body that you experience that's different than the feeling of the palm of your hand, and recognize that you can hold both of those things to be true. So learning how to have layered experiences is a way that we don't invalidate any of our experiences that we have, because the invalidation of an experience is the food for shame and the food for embarrassment when we start to say, that's not real, that's not true, you're so full of shit, how can you pretend that people love you, how can you feel this thing, there it is, there's the food for our embarrassment, our shame, our rejection. So we don't want to invalidate those things. We want to say, you know what, that is true. There is a truth inside of me that feels this. That I feel loved, I feel safe. There's a truth inside of me that I feel unsafe and I feel rejection. Okay, both of these things can be true at any moment. Just providing that space for feeling all of those feelings one at a time, and being able to retreat just a little bit and stepping back and going, okay, well, what's the center of my palm feel like? I guarantee the center of my palm doesn't feel ugly or rejected. Center of my palm, it doesn't worry about those things. But I can sit with that part of me that does feel rejection, and I can say, hey, I'm here. And just like what Taryn was talking about, we need to be seen and witnessed by others. But you have so many others already inside of you. There are so many voices that aren't even yours, but when you can sit with those things and you can have all of these aspects of yourself be accessible, then you can sit with yourself in that rejection and you can go, I see that. Like, I see that rejection in you. I see that you feel that pain. That's all right, though. You can feel that pain. You don't have to believe it, but you can know it's there. And you'll be all right. And then you take a few breaths and you bring yourself to a different layer of your existence. You go even deeper to that spark of love and that spark of life right in the center of your heart. Breathing into your heart and out of your heart directly is going to give you that sensation. So when those uncomfortable feelings come up, that damage, that wounding, we don't have to run away from it, but we can step back from it just a little bit when we start to feel overwhelmed by it. And you can become the witness. Does this make sense, or does this sound a little too bizarro world for anyone? We got thumbs up? Yeah. All right. Let's quickly... I don't want to rush it, but I want to... I want to move into...
Now I can feel the seam of my socks.
Yeah. Like, I feel like the princess and the pea sometimes when I start to become too aware of my body. I'm like... Yeah. I appreciate you all for for taking these practices into mind, even if it's something that's a bit too much right now to take in fully, to practice completely. These are just seeds that we plant with ourselves. We plant these seeds, and then we can remember sometime when, I find it happening to me often, is I still get quite triggered sometimes, emotionally especially. It's really easy these days to become overtaken by emotions of anger or fear when we start to see what's happening in the headlines, and we start to recognize all the potentials for harm that might exist in our world. But when we can recognize that, oh yeah, that's taking place in a machine that's literally built to generate feelings of uncontrollable emotion in my body. Whether that uncontrollable emotion is pure pleasure and, unrestricted desire, or that emotion is absolute and utter terror. That machine that's generating that information, that's made to take us into those places. It's not a conspiracy, it's just marketing. Because when we're off balance, we shop. Anybody ever hop on Amazon or Temu at 11 o'clock at night and buy some absolute crap that you don't need, that's probably made by children in some other country, but you are so emotionally destroyed in that moment that you're like, I'm going to buy this crap. And then you feel better. You're like, oh, yeah, that'll be cool. Retail therapy. Now I'll be full. Now I've got that shirt that says that funny thing, and now I'm going to be accepted in a real person. It's not a shameful thing to experience it. That's a human thing. And that's why these machines are created. These machines are created as marketing tools to sell.
Make it easy.
Yeah. When I was younger, George Bush Sr., when he was president during the first Iraq War conflict of my lifetime. My brother went to that war. And he's an oil magnate. The Bush family has an oil company called Arbusto, which is Spanish for Bush. And he's making deals with Saudis. And he's doing all this work and, all this oil deals. And there's bumper stickers that go on cars that talk about ending the oil wars. It's an interesting irony, We're literally owning and controlling and feeding the machines that are starving us of the things that we actually need. This is just a human habitation. This is something we have made a habit of. We used to joke that George Bush probably owns the company that makes the bumper stickers that tells you what a jerky is, because he can sell them to you. That's what we're experiencing. So the reason that I bring this up is to say, when you get to these places, when I get to these emotional places, every once in a while, more often than not now, I get a spark that ignites, that says, hey, remember your breath. Just remember your breath. Come back to the sound of the wind in the trees. Come back to the feeling of the air on your skin. That's what's here with you right now. All those other things, those are all narrative, and they're all going to work themselves out. And you can participate in working it out, just not right now, because you're a mess. And you're about to buy 300 of something on Temu that you just don't need. Take the breath. So these are just seeds. But I want to get to Bell Hook's Appalachian Elegy. We've been working through this book. Y'all remember that? I'm going to show this to the people out there. So this is Bell Hook's treatise on place. It's called Appalachian Elegy, Poetry and Place, because this is where Bell Hooks is from. This is literally what makes Bell Hooks Bell Hooks. This place, this land, but not just the land as in the dirt and the things under our feet, but the feeling of being in place, being a member, belonging. And we're on number 33 today. Tap dancing on tin roofs. Heavy rain falls, wetness spreading all over borders, refusing containment. Flash flood warning, sirens call, stay in, be still. Guard your heart. Let rain be the only necessary movement. The bell hook's magic is real, y'all. She's talking about us right now. I'm going to read it again. Actually, would somebody else like to read this one? Lucy Becker, would you like? Yeah. We're on number 33.
Tap dancing on tin roofs. Heavy rain falls, wetness spreading all over borders, refusing containment. Flash flood warnings, sirens stay in, be still. Guard your heart, let rain be the only necessary movement.
Nice, lovely. I mean, it's almost exactly what we were talking about. In some ways, it's talking about these wetness spreading all over borders, refusing containment. What is wetness? What is water? We learned this from our native cousins.
Life.
Water is life. And here's this life is spreading without borders. Refusing containment.
And ice.
Yeah, melting.
Ice and water melting.
Yeah. But this says, sirens call, stay in, be still. Guard your heart. If we can picture this example that's being spread here, the storm is water, it's life, but the storm is also chaos, and it's being out of control, and it's our minds, our thoughts are a storm that rages sometimes. And she's reminding us, be still in here, guard your heart. Don't take it to heart just because it's in your mind. Just because it's a thought doesn't mean that it's got to be feeding your heart. You can have both of those things as these layers. They don't have to be harmed by one another. You can guard your heart but still be open, still experience the experience. Heartbreak is real and it's important. It's very important. It's very important. It's just as important as falling in love. And that same heartbreak is important when it comes from disappointments with our family or disappointments in the world as a whole, disappointments in what's happening socially, what we see in the comment section on Facebook. Man, oh man. Talk about the garbage disposal of human emotion. Just read the comment section. People are putting all their scraps in there and blending it up, and it just stinks like rotting garbage. But that's all part of who we are. But it doesn't have to affect us in the same way. Guard your heart. Be still. And that's what this practice is. Let's take a couple breaths together and then we'll close out. Are there any questions or anything that anybody wants to comment on anything that was spoken or anything you experienced? No? Okay. I don't know if anybody out here is... there's a comment from a person out there that says, don't tell a tattoo artist this while getting one, they don't react well. I'm imagining that's, yeah. Yeah, as a former tattoo artist, I can't tell you, every single person that comes in always asks, does it hurt? I mean, I'm dragging a needle across your skin 1,000 times a second. Like, yep. Yep, it hurts.
It should.
But only while it's happening. People ask me all the time, does that hurt? Not anymore. Not anymore. Now it's just a beautiful scar. Metaphor.
And ink in your lymph nodes.
Yeah, right. Yeah, heavy metals. It's just some heavy metals on my skin. Okay, let's take a few breaths together. I appreciate you all for being here today. I'm going to invite the bell one last time. And we'll breathe in through our nose and out gently, 3 breaths. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and really feel that release in the back of your neck and shoulders. when you breathe out. Give thanks. All right, y'all.